Atmospheric perspective. The illusion of space is done with more than just perspective lines. It also has a lot to do with color. To start the exercise off, I'm creating a gesture to plan out my drawing. Simple backyard drawing. Fence, house behind my house, a bamboo hedge to the right, a little dog house eventually on the left. And I just plan where everything goes. Now, I'm going to start, after I get my bushes in the right places, I'm going to start painting, but when you paint from the background forward. In the background, you want to limit your palette. Since this is a grayscale exercise, I'm only going to have 3 shades of gray in the background. Those 3 shades of gray in the background are going to have very little texture to them. They're going to have very little information. I'm going to keep it very simple. When I move to the midground, I'm going to show more texture. Not an extraordinary amount of texture, but I'm going to show the texture of the fence, some of the kind of different shades of gray in the bushes and in the grass. But it needs to be very loose and very gestural. You do not want to put an extraordinary amount of textural information in your midground. Okay? So you can see that in the midground, instead of just having 3 different shades of gray, I will be having about maybe 5 different shades of gray. In order to create a greater amount of textual information. Starting with my little bamboo shoots. And again, I'm not putting a lot of detail into the bamboo shoots. I'm just kind of getting their basic forms on there. Again, I'm keeping everything in the gray family. Everything needs to be visible, but everything also needs, you're trying to save your strongest colors for the very end. So building up all the different textures that I see in the midground, but again, they're supposed to be out of focus because they're farther away from me. Now, moving on to the foreground. In the foreground, you're going to notice that instead of just 5 shades of gray, I'm going to have about 6 different shades of gray. And the most important thing is that I have saved the black and white details for the things that are closest to me. So if you notice, as I paint the grass, I'm using a lot of smaller marks because I want the grass to look like grass. Like I want to try to create the texture of the grass in the foreground. And then I want to lose that texture as it goes farther back. So it goes from being kind of a soft texture to a very visible texture. In the bush that's in front of the bush that is in the back, there will be more shades of gray. There will be small amounts of white in there. There will be small amounts of black in there. There you see me starting to put some very white little leaf shapes in there and some very black shadows to make the little bush that is in front look closer than the bush that is behind. You see me using the white to kind of figure out the different segments of the bamboo shoots and then drawing out the leaves in almost a pure black because those leaves are closer to me. The black and the white must only be in the foreground. You should not have white or black in the midground or in the background. And you're trying to make the foreground have the most texture, the most marks, the most information. some indescript leaf shapes and grass, just adjusting everything, smudging and drawing and smudging and drawing, always adjusting things in the background and the foreground. You have to constantly make sure that everything is the right shade. You see me adding little white highlights to the leaves in the front so that they pop out as being closer to me than those gray leaves in the back. On the doghouse now, I'm adding kind of a cartoony wood grain so that there is more information in the doghouse that's closer to me as compared to the fence that's in the background. In the fence, there is no wood grain. And then, just as a last minute kind of idea, I throw in a hedge that is mostly just black and white. And in the hedge, I'm using my brush to create definite leaf shapes. If you notice, the only kind of actual leaf shapes in the entire picture are in this bush that is closest to me, because since the bush is closest to me, I can see the texture of the leaf more clearly. In the little bushes behind and in the trees in the back, you see that the texture goes away as you work farther back into space. And thus, saving your black and white for the foreground and controlling your texture, you create the illusion of space.